actually going to share with you a little bit about the businesses that I'm involved in, and I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about the restaurant that I own today. But I am a keynote speaker on the topic of innovation. So my typical kind of stream of conversation is just how can we harness innovation? How can we try to find ways to think differently? And that obviously, really comes out in my keynote speaking, in the workshops I do, but it really came to life during COVID for me and the restaurant that I own. So just want to say thanks again for having me here today. It's an honor. I've been talking with a bunch of different chapters of 1 Million Cups and getting some good feedback. So I really, again, appreciate the opportunity. I have a little bit of kind of a mixed bag of businesses that I'm involved in. I was in corporate America for about 15 years with General Mills. And then I was a part of a couple of startups. And then I decided to start a business of my own. So the Frasca name is what I use. That's the brand that I use for all of my keynote speaking, all of my workshops. And then Traska and Company Eatery is the restaurant that I own in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. It was really a labor of love. I would say I was hoping to carry on my family's legacy. I'll show you some images in a moment here, but my grandmother invented the food that we serve back in 1974. So I was able to just kind of carry that forward. I'm a third generation to serve her food and really wanted to serve my community, build a business here locally. And then about 3 years ago, we started Platypus Labs. So a group of Detroit-based folks that I had worked with in the past. We started a consulting firm that is all about innovation. So at Platypus Labs, I mean, honestly, we have been honored to serve and support some of the biggest brands in the world and really have a front row seat to see exactly what happens when leaders and organizations fully embrace innovation, and also, frankly, what happens when they do not. So this is kind of my world. I have 5 kids. I have kind of a busy little world, but we try to be mindful to serve. And I would say, the service that we give in our community through this restaurant is very important to me. I have, I would say, a lot of interest in, again, carrying on my family's legacy and teaching my children just what that kind of service is like. So the restaurant that I own, again, it's in Ponte Vedra Beach. It is the food that my grandmother started in 1974. We make her homemade secret family dough every single day, which of course is this kind of artisan pizza making craft that's really been long forgotten in the world of chains. I've had the chance to serve the community. My favorite quote is from social media. It's about 2 years ago now. Someone posted, "Walking into Traska is like walking into a warm hug." And that has always really been something that I've been proud of. People feel comfortable. They've embraced the spot. I have employed an incredibly talented and loving staff over the years. We've been open for 5 years. I've worked with high school kids, college kids, obviously, really trying to give them a sense of the humility, of the warmth of that type of service, but also of the hard work necessary to really start to build themselves and make a career. But I've also employed staff that has relied on this income. They have decided to make careers in the service industry, and being a part of our Traska family is how they support their families, right? They need the wages. We have above industry wages. We have healthcare, et cetera. We also just have a very safe and reliable support net. We really are. I'm very proud to say. I mean, we've done the things that make me feel good and make me feel proud as an employer. So most evenings you'll find, families enjoying dinner, lively conversation on the patio, laughter, even the occasional local musician crooning on the patio. We serve pizza, we have craft beer and wine. It's really a happening spot. So then enter COVID. The situation obviously shut down the entire dining industry. It cut our revenue to a mere fraction instantly. The situation was extremely grave. People were no longer allowed to dine inside the restaurant. They were banned from the patio, and we were forced to really contemplate shutting down and even declaring bankruptcy. I called, a bankruptcy attorney to start understanding what this looked like. I walked into the restaurant after about a week of all of the COVID news and was really shell-shocked. I would say I was in a state of depression and anxiety. I just had that cold sweat. I had a sick stomach as I worried about what we were going to do for the employees, especially if I was to shut the doors. Peter on our team just had a new baby. He now has 3 little ones, all under 4 years old. Teresa cares for her elderly neighbor. She has a grandson that is in her home after her daughter has passed away. So the people on my team were relying on me to find a way through this. I could not stomach telling them that they would lose their jobs in the middle of this crisis. There had to be a way. And honestly, I had to dig deep. I teach innovation for a living to some of the biggest brands in the world. How was I going to face even myself in the mirror, knowing that I hadn't applied those same tools and techniques to my own business? So I dug deep. I took a step back. I started to ask myself who needed food, who was in desperate need for the warmth, the comfort of a home cooked meal. I would say my grandmother's food has been a hit for decades, who enjoy a hearty meal. It's really delicious. They're very nutritious meals. They're considered comfort food even in a simpler time. So I took a look around. I realized that many of the men and women who are fighting COVID were apart from the comforts of their own homes. They were away from their families, really sacrificing their situation so that others could survive. But it wasn't just the doctors and nurses at the hospital. In fact, one of my best friends, this is her name is Lori, and she's a Jacksonville firefighter. And she just has told me the chaos, right? The long hours of preparation, the lack of respite during this very crazy time. And it was then that it hit me. We had the power to help folks that were risking their lives. We had the power to bring a small piece of comfort to those dedicating their lives to help others. So enter our Adopt a Hero program. We wanted to build a program that would give people a place to donate. And then we would take those donations and turn it into food and bring it all over the city to help the first responders. We wanted to build a flexible program, not only to help people donate whatever they felt comfortable with, and we've honestly had donations from $5 to $1,000. But we wanted flexibility for the heroes as well. We didn't want to build a rigid system where we would bring food at a specific time to a specific location, etc. We knew that they were overwhelmed and they were almost reinventing themselves and their business each day as well. So we partnered with them to bring the food at a time and a place that would help them the most. We've had the chance to bring food to over 15 establishments in the community, sometimes multiple times to the same hospital, the same sheriff's office, the same fire halls. We've had over $10,000 in donations, and we certainly have had the chance to hear the gratitude in the voices of the hospital workers, of the first responders, of the men and women in our community. But we also had benefits ourselves. The time period when we launched this program was just prior to the PPP, the Payroll Protection Fund payments coming through. And I would say it was in about a week time frame when we had to look at our cash flow and recognize that we were not going to make payroll. So we launched this program, the donations started flooding in, and we were able to bridge that week. Honestly, it was about a week when we would have gone bankrupt, but we were able to find a way through that week. And now I truly believe that we will be better after COVID than we were going in. We've had the chance to take care of our community. We've had the chance to give folks in the community a place to donate and give back. And we've also had the chance to help our Traska family, to build a bridge to get us through this time, to get us to a position where we can sustain. It's a situation clearly that none of us would have chosen. It has the potential to devastate businesses, employees, families, but the power of believing that every barrier can be penetrated. We were able to carefully craft this win-win solution, and Peter, Teresa, they have all been able to maintain full-time hours. In fact, the tips flooding in from the community have actually increased people's per hour payroll, their paychecks, to more than it was in a normal time. So I truly believe that, again, this is an example that when we are faced with crisis, when our backs are against the wall, we have to dig deep. We have to find a way. We have to allow creativity to solve the day. So this is one of the tenets that I teach big businesses all across the world. Every barrier can be penetrated. When we have no options, we have to throw more passion at it, more creativity, and find a way through whatever it is that we are faced with. So that's the story of how we've made it through, at least from the restaurant's perspective. And that is the story that I was hoping to share with you today. So while I can open it up to questions, I think I'm open to feedback of any sort. Thank you.
Okay, who would like to start?
That was a great presentation. I'm sure you've already talked to your local newscasters. I mean, apart from being wonderful for the community, it's great publicity for you. What else does Platypus Labs do?
Yeah, I actually haven't talked to the media, so I have to write that down.
Yeah, I would call your local CBS station particularly or NBC, because if the story, the fact that it's a win-win, the fact that your folks are making more in tips than they had previously, that's something that could actually get picked up by the national news.
Yeah, I really appreciate
that. And give other restaurants like yours an idea of something that they can do in their community.
That's great.
So, yeah.
That's excellent.
So do that, but tell me more about Platypus Labs.
Yeah, Platypus Labs. So we are an innovation consulting firm, and I would say we really have kind of three key tenets of our business. The first of which is keynote speaking. So, I think we try to motivate audiences, and of course it's during a different time. We go out and have a sales meeting or a leadership meeting where people are bringing anywhere from 6,000 to 6,000 people together, and trying to get people to believe that they can be creative, that they can find innovative paths, that they can think differently. So a lot of what I tell are stories of everyday innovators, people that are not Microsoft, not Amazon, not Elon Musk, not those sorts of folks. And those, certainly I don't mean to discredit them. They're amazing and certainly important and impressive, but it's hard for folks to relate to that type of leader. So I really try to use a lot of stories of everyday innovation. And then the second thing is workshops. So not only do we try to inspire change in people's mindsets, but we want to help them practice the tools of innovation, so that they can not only learn them kind of in a teach a man to fish philosophy. So if I teach people, then they can apply it to their business. But we also spend a good deal of our time helping them apply it to their business. Oftentimes people get caught in the web of, oh, what's legal going to say? Oh, I don't have enough time on my plate. Like people get stuck in their ruts, and so we help them kind of push through that. And then the third tenet is really just typical consulting. How can we link arms? How can we help people to build a culture that will support innovation? I think one of the most important aspects of that is creative confidence. Oftentimes we find that organizations and even just individuals have had some series of events that have kind of told them that they're not creative, right? That creativity is for the people in the lab coats or the people in the marketing department, that they're not creative. And so, oftentimes when I work with a group of business professionals, part of it is just reminding people it doesn't have to be a product launch. It doesn't have to be massive. It can be a small change. It can be how you run your meetings. It can be putting the pepperoni under the cheese instead of on top. It's just little things that we can make kind of some momentum on and gain some confidence. And then putting in place rewards and rituals that help to promote that type of behavior, help to build people's I would say momentum. Again, it's practicing creativity like a muscle, like you would if you were learning how to play the guitar.
Sure.
So that's what we do.
Sounds like I should introduce you to Dale Furtweiler. He's kind of pushing that anybody can be creative as well. And he also points out to people in particular that you never price yourself as high as you should.
Oh, that's good.
What is the last name? Dale Furtweiler, Furtweiler.
Great. I would love to.
Yeah. If you put your contact information into the chat.
Sure. Be happy to.
Reach out. Right. Oh, another thing, when you pitch your story to the media, have your firefighter friend do the pitch for you.
Wow, that's
If it
fun.
comes from somebody other than an employee in the restaurant, it's more likely to get picked up.
Okay, that's great. That's very nice.
Yeah.
I just
No,
chatted.
I'm a big fan of side doors, side windows. I almost never go in through the front door.
Well, that's great. That's really good advice. Um, I'm just writing all of this down, so
Hmm.
taking copious notes here. So, yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons that I reached out to the 1 Million Cups chapters was that this is the first time I've ever told this story. Of course, it's brand new. I tell a lot of stories about other people, but I've never told a story about myself. And I was a little bit anxious about it, a little bit self-conscious. I didn't know how I would feel. So I don't know if you have any feedback for me on that, whether it, seems like it's boastful, seems like it's.
Well, I think what kind of was left unanswered for me is what are you going to do with it now?
Mm,
because you
good.
built you found this way to get yourself through this, by applying the lessons you had learned. And
Mm,
it seems to me like a lot of restaurants should really, a lot of restaurants like, hey, I want to open my door, I want to cook good food, and I want to have people come in and give me money for it. And today's world is just different than that, especially
yeah.
post COVID. Everything is going to be rethought, and it's like, how could you take those insights and go specifically to restaurants? Because I mean, they're probably the ones that have
Mm,
taken it the most on the chin in this entire thing. That, and people just doing, anyone who's even tangentially connected to that has taken it on the chin. And so, I don't know, how do you plan to kind of spread that kind of thinking, the thinking that you brought to bear on that, not just what you did, because what you did is unique and one of a time, but it's the thought process behind it. But that was a really long
No,
question.
that's
Try to
great,
answer it.
Joe. Okay, so I'll break it down a little bit. So I would say, I don't know if the Adopt a Hero program will live as it does today after COVID, because I would imagine that, but I guess it's possible that it will. The relationships we've built with the hospitals, especially, are fairly new for us. And I would say, like the Mayo Clinic, Jacksonville, is just down the road. And we've had them say to families. We had a gentleman whose wife, not related to COVID, but he felt like he wanted to give back to the staff that had helped his wife. So when they said to the hospital, "Hey, we'd like to donate a meal for your team," the hospital then said, "Hey, we want you to call Traska," because they knew that we're COVID trained. We've gone through all of the health and the food safety to be trained post COVID. I think we were easy to work with and we're local. So I think the Mayo Clinic felt good about that and was then able to make that recommendation. So now the referral piece hopefully will not the Adopt a Hero program. Um, and then, I think other entities, right? Should we be doing it for schools? Should we be making longer lasting type relationships where people can donate and then we bring the food to very worthy causes, whether we have a program here called Blessings in a Backpack for kids that need subsidized meals during the day while they're at school. So whether it's breakfast or lunch or things like that, I don't know, but I think that's a really important question, because it was that moment of, every entrepreneur faces it. And, I've done it before COVID and I'm sure we'll do it again after, but you have those moments of, oh my gosh, like, I don't know
Right.
if I'm going to make it. And I think that's the difference maker between entrepreneurs and folks sitting in a corporate setting. I mean, if your family isn't at risk from your P&L, you don't feel it in the same way. I've had the blessing of supporting big brands, but you're just fine. If the business isn't going great, like, you may lose your job and go to a different big brand, but there's not that like intense gut feel of, having to figure out how to do it. So I can't remember my point, but I hope I answered your question.
Anybody else?
Well, another way to think about that you just were referring to and Joseph was asking about, it's a type of scalability. So while you are able to do a lot of these things because of being local, the specifics of what you were doing could scale to other geographic regions, as well as the type of function that you just created could be of use to other companies. So look at it from the point of view of scalability, and you're doing good in your community and you can do good across the country. I mean, this is a global thing. So the scalability is huge.
That's great. That's a really great point. Yeah, you know, I thought about at one point, and I think you could scale it in a number of ways, but one of the ideas I had was that at the very kind of heart of the panic on food, we turned to our grab and go meals as a way that we could safely provide meals like not pizza, well, we did par-baked pizzas too, but like a lasagna or a chicken parmesan or whatever we were doing, because then people could take it and put it in their ovens at whatever temperature and kill. I mean, the possibility of you know, the risk of having food that was tainted then becomes null because the people are putting it in their own oven. So we tried to, you know, again, mitigate risk and make sure we were insulated from, dear God, what if the CDC comes out and says, oh no, takeout food is no longer safe? They didn't, and that's not the case, but if they did, we wanted to protect ourselves. So my point was, I started to think about whether our grab and go meals could be frozen and shipped. So the scalability, as you're mentioning, of like, maybe it's, you know, a donation that comes in or something that comes in, and then we're able to ship to hospitals or fire halls or whatever is necessary. I mean, that's a really great idea. I don't know that anybody does that right now. Not that I know of anyway.
I mean, we've got a chain called Papa Murphy, and they make pizza that you cook at home.
Right, right.
So you've got a specialty crust, which is unique. So yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard of some restaurants selling bags of flour, because people at one point, it was hard to get flour in the grocery stores, and they could get it in bulk because there were tons of that because the schools weren't open in all the other places. And so they got items that people needed but couldn't get, and actually started selling that along with their, you know, takeout.
Yeah, I heard St. Louis Bread, which is Panera. They were providing food almost as a grocery store because, like Paul said, they could get it in bulk.
Yes, that's great.
But you know, you want to do what works for you. You don't need to go in all these other directions if what's working for you is working for you.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, and if you want to create a chain and share your grandma's recipe, that's one thing. But you know, right now, particularly because it's Florida. I mean, Florida's in the news all the time.
Yeah.
Perpetually, yes.
Yeah.
And maybe
And,
the
you know,
Republican.
you've got a model that works. I mean, particularly, I mean, you can go into the same mode when there's a hurricane. You know.
That's a great idea.
This is absolutely a model. It's your emergency response model, and maybe when things are more or less back to normal, you still have the option for people dining in their tables to add a certain percentage to the bill to honor a firefighter or pay a hospital worker down the road. You know, so you don't lose the program altogether. And you keep people, you know, you're a family organization, you behave like a family, and your community activism stays essentially active. So, and it's fine that it's part of your marketing.
Yeah, that's great feedback. And I love the idea of the hurricane response because, boy, that comes up every year.
Every year,
Yeah.
and it gets
Yeah.
worse every year. I mean, we're getting more named storms, and Florida's always hit.
Yeah.
You know, you can't avoid it. If it goes up the East Coast, it misses the West, or if it misses the East, it's going to hit the West. And you know, just everything gets stirred up. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's Florida.
No, that's great feedback.
Sarah, you mentioned that you were COVID trained. That whole area would be a tremendous thing to inform other restaurants of. I don't know if you have like a core set of information that you have in a very difficult way earned that information, but at least directing other restaurants to, well, a list of the things they have to think of, be
Yeah.
COVID trained. Okay, and here's
That's
some
great.
things that you can read to get started with, and here are some news articles, and here are some steps that you can do. I think the COVID tree of tremendous value to other restaurants
Okay.
as well.
That's good feedback. Yeah, we had our entire staff trained by the health inspector on this topic. So we have like a certificate on our front door
Okay.
that alerts people. But, you know, I think sometimes we're maybe not as, like we don't push that in our marketing. But I think you're right. Maybe that is something that we could help other restaurants know that that's something that is good to do. Our goal was not only to do the right thing, but to make sure people felt safe. We have a pretty big population of people whose immunity or immune systems are depressed. We have the Mayo Clinic here. And so, you know, there's folks here getting treatment for all sorts of things. So we just want to make sure that we're always kind of on the front lines of knowing what to do.
And I think that it's
Training
tremendous that this is
local
something that you have certain values, and they have come through in a very strong way throughout this whole emergency. That's
Yeah,
tremendous.
that's great. That's really good feedback. Sometimes you do things and you don't
What's driving
realize
it? Yeah,
yeah.
excellent.
Was that training local, or is it a CDC protocol?
So it's through a former health inspector. So she was a former health inspector here locally and now runs a business on her own. It's called Restaurant Compliance Solutions, if that helps at all. But yeah, she is outstanding. So she's
Okay,
done all the
tell
training.
her to do 1 million cups.
Oh, that's great.
Good
Yeah.
idea.
She needs,
Excellent.
you know, if she's got something that potentially other health inspectors around the country should know about, they could potentially help themselves as well as help other restaurants, you
That's
know,
great.
because all these protocols tend to be state by state because the feds have sort of washed their hands in a not so friendly way. But yeah, a business like that can help other businesses be more compliant, have certificates, make the community feel safer doing what they'd like to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's, yeah. So
Great.
contact her, have her do 1 million cups to get started, and at least, you know, we can move these things along and
That's
share.
great. That's really good feedback. I think she can pretty much do her training virtually.
Which is superb. And
Yeah.
that's absolutely wonderful. And if you're a restaurant and you want a certificate, you should pay her for that training.
That's right. Yes. Well, we did. It's quite expensive, actually.
But still, you know,
But worth it.
she's doing stuff virtually. You know, she
Yeah.
needs to get,
That's great.
yeah.
And
Well,
paying
thank
for
you.
her to do the job that she does is an investment in moving your company forward. And that's the case for other people too, other restaurants, other businesses.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's been great to see how restaurants in particular have been very innovative. It's a tough place to be, but it's also good. The other sector of the, I guess, of our world is the health care and all the people that are involved in all of that. has. And so you've actually brought two together in an amazing way. And it's great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? So what's next for you, Sarah? How are you getting back to normal?
Well, I think one of the things that, I think we're out of the woods since we got the PPP funding, and our business has continued to ramp back up. We've continued to innovate and find different ways to serve. So I think like it's a big relief to not have to worry about going bankrupt anymore. Like we will be okay. And in fact, like I mentioned, I think we will be better coming out of this than we were going in. We've found a number of ways to serve the community that I think will sustain even beyond COVID. So that's off my mind. Of course, that's, one of those sleepless nights things like having an infant. So we do a lot of workshops, and we're doing a lot online right now. So I have another inventive thinking masterclass coming up. So I have no idea if you're interested, but it's several $100s to attend in person. We brought it down to $59 per person, so that anyone could participate. So that's coming up.
Is that Platypus Labs? You're doing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's platypuslabs.com. And, it's stories of innovation. We take people through tools and the mindsets of innovation. So how to really think differently, how to push the envelope, why that's important. So that's fun. So that's a 4-hour, it's a 3-hour class taught over 2 90-minute sections. So platypuslabs.com would tell you that one. And then I think, I don't know. I think the summer will hopefully hold some momentum changes in kind of the world getting back together. I'm hoping that we'll see, obviously a vaccine and we can have big groups again. So I'd like to speak on a stage again.
Nothing planned, I guess, all virtual speaking right now?
I have some in October that are planned. I, in fact, had a lot of clients now that are booking, instead of a 1-hour keynote, they're doing a 2-hour, they're doing 2 1-hour keynotes. So when they put their auditorium together, they only have half of the audience in one session and then half in the other session. So there's a couple of corporate clients that are doing it that way for the fall, which is great. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Every day brings new thoughts.
Joe, did you ask the question how we can help her?
No, I was getting to that, but okay, there you go.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think the main thing, and again, the main question of how to help was just the feedback on the story. I had some trepidation on telling a story about myself. I think that's not my normal. But I thought it was compelling enough, and it at least is in the same vein of innovation where I felt like it was applicable. So I guess your feedback on that was really helpful. And then,
I think, if I can interrupt you, I think people are looking for positive stories these days. People are looking for, something to feel good about. So, the company thinking outside the box in order to stay afloat and, provide keep their employees and all that, people will, eat that up.
Okay. That's really good feedback. Yeah. I mean, I am a very positive person in general. I would say, that week was really bad. I was really in a rough spot, but coming out of that, I feel more optimistic than ever. And that's just, it's exciting to think that we actually got better from this. But, I've said, I think I said in an interview last week, something to the effect of, they say necessity is the mother of invention. And I think crisis is the mother of innovation. It's when we are panic stricken and it's that survival mode we go into that really kind of gets our creative juices flowing.
Sarah, in Texas, they say it ain't bragging if you done it. But, grammar aside, that's one thing. But the fact is, you are operating on very strong values, and your story is about, this is how we helped ourselves. This is how we helped other people. We are expanding to help more people still. So putting your values front and center, and the whole thing is you're helping other people. So I think that you can move past being shy about telling your story for that reason.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That's great. That's great. Well, thanks for being willing to have me on today. I just really appreciate getting to know you, and I'm really hopeful I'll get to come to a meeting. My sister had a baby not long ago, and she's in St. Louis, so I know I'm coming to visit soon as I can.
Hey, you definitely should.
Yeah,
We're downtown if that helps you.
that's great. I won't forget T-Rex. Good job with the branding.
Yeah, there we are.
All right.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that's an awesome spot.
we put some contact information and stuff in the chat, so save the chat. And
Mary, do you think it would be okay if I reached out to Dale directly? Or okay.
Absolutely. Tell him Mary Scott sent you.
Okay, that's wonderful. I will do just that.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sarah, for presenting. Thanks everybody for attending, for asking questions. Ricky, do we know who is presenting next week?
No, we don't, but we have somebody kind of in the queue. So stay tuned.
All right. Well, there you go. Stay Tuned is presenting next week. All right. Well, everybody, thanks everybody for attending 1 Million Cups, and hope to see you all next week. And Sarah, hope to see you sometime when you're in town.
Thank you. Thanks, you guys. Have a
Take
great
care,
day.
everybody.